He said, quote, "Prime Minister, know that every person in this room and the 180,000 people who work in this industry have your back, just as we know you have ours."
The media has Mark Carney's back scandal just took a new twist. Mark Miller had to answer questions in a committee. You are not going to believe what he says. Get ready for him to try to unravel this pretzel. I got lots of news for you today. Let's get into this report.
Prime Minister, know that every person in this room and the 180,000 people who work in this industry have your back, just as we know that you have ours.
We knew the media was biased, but for the first time in Canadian history, the media actually came out and admitted it. We got your back, Mark Carney, because you got ours. This clip was quickly deleted by CPAC and all over the internet, but luckily Canadian citizens saved the receipts for us all to see for all of time. What I find very interesting is how the audience went from hard clapping before they made the statement, and after the statement, it was like a couple people going, uh-oh, there is a problem. Let's see this clip again. Here's the hard clapping. Now let's hear the soft, uh-oh, we didn't want that to come out.
We know that you have ours.
The audience was like, oh, this is not going to go well. The Liberal supporters know that media is biased in supporting the Liberal agenda, but they were not expecting the media to admit it. Now we have Mark Miller answering questions in committee. And oh yeah, he's trying to unravel this pretzel, and you are not going to believe what he says.
Canadians should be able to place their trust in the media. And in particular, you mentioned the public broadcaster, the CBC. Interestingly enough, just a couple of weeks ago, there was a media summit that was hosted in Vancouver. And at that media summit, the president of the Canadian Media Producers Association said from the stage, just before the Prime Minister took it, he said, quote, "Prime Minister, know that every person in this room and the 180,000 people who work in this industry have your back, just as we know you have ours." Minister, this is from a media organization in a room full of media folks, directly to the Prime Minister, saying, we have your back just as we know you have ours. Minister, that's not the role of the media. The role of the media is not to have the back of the Prime Minister and to be able to tell the story that the government wants told. The role of the media is to be truthful in storytelling, to report the news as Canadians deserve to have it told. When a statement like this is made, it chips away at the credibility of media, and it actually distorts the trust of Canadians that you just spoke about being important. What do you make of that?
The trust in mainstream media is completely gone, but after this, there's no coming back from this. Let's take a look at Mark Miller's response. I can't wait till he could explain this to Canadians.
Well, what I make of your statement, Ms. Thomas, is you're deeply incorrect in the premise that, first of all, the event.
Deeply incorrect. Are we surprised? Are we surprised that Mark Miller says we should not trust our eyeballs? What we see with our eyes is fake. We need to listen to Mark Miller's explanation.
Itself took place in Ottawa. It was not members, it was in CTV, CBC. It was producers of shows. And those two executives, let's just correct the record.
Let's correct the record. It was news as well. In fact, the head of the CBC was one of the key speakers at this event.
What was said at the event, Ms. Thomas, from producers of shows like Heated Rivalry that was discussed at length, was that in the trade negotiations, these people that are defending Canadian content had the Prime Minister's back. It wasn't CBC or independent journalists.
Their job, with all due respect,
false.
Minister, their job is to report on those trade negotiations. And so if you're reporting on those trade negotiations, you just simply report the facts. You don't have the Prime Minister's back.
The job of these people is
That's
to make shows.
That's an illegitimate use
like
of
puppets.
media.
Like these are producers. They make shows. It's not. They don't. It wasn't.
Minister, you're misleading the committee. It was not just producers. That was part of it.
The two speakers were head of an organization that talk about media producers.
These are folks who are receiving government dollars, who are producing material that is making it out to the Canadian public. They are telling stories.
180,000 members. So you're telling me, Mark Miller, that not one of the 180,000 members of this media covered the news? I don't know if I'm buying his story.
And they are telling the Prime Minister, we have your back just as you have ours.
They are telling the Prime Minister in the context of being under threat from U.S. content coming into Canada that they want to protect a pillar of our cultural identity, which is Canadian content. That's all they were saying.
They tell stories.
I think you're wrong, and I think
their job is to tell stories. So how are they going to tell stories to protect the Prime Minister's back?
They want support financially to be able to tell stories about Canadian identity, whether it's good or bad about the Prime Minister.
But they're saying they also have the Prime Minister's back. So how are they going to have his back?
I think you're making this up. Like, I really think this is something you're looking for. Something where there is not
quote from the individual who spoke.
But you're insinuating that it's journalists that are going to spin stories positively for the Prime Minister because they quote unquote have his back. That's entirely false. These are producers of shows like The Littlest Hobo, for God's sake.
I want to hear from you. Is this making things up? Because we watch mainstream media and we see how they do their spin game on a daily basis. So everything that we see with our eyes was just confirmed. And he says it's all made up. Rosemary Barton and David Crocken provide the most exceptional news on a daily basis. There's zero bias there. And they're providing Canadians with factual news, and they do not have Mark Carney's back. Not even a second. Every time they say something on the news, it's against the Liberals. It's actually perfect journalism. Who do you believe? I can't wait to hear from you in the comment section. Mark Miller's defense is you are lying. Mark Miller is on a roll. Wow, his arrogance is unbelievable. The way that he talks down to women is just sickening, in my opinion. Here's where Canada is at. Mark Miller, trust me, bro, everything is good. 150 years worth of laws? Who needs laws in this country? Let's go.
Individual minister, be allowed to bypass 150 years of Canadian law and exempt a person or company of their choosing.
Yeah, look, that may be your view, but I don't think that is what's happening.
Well, that's how it's written.
It doesn't say people are being exempted from 150 years of law.
It says from any federal law except the criminal code.
Right. There's no mention of years or...
It's any federal law except for the... So it's any federal law that has been passed over the last 150 years.
Right. I'm not going to parse this out with you.
So just to be clear, you don't need it to do your job, but you want to keep it nonetheless.
I think it's helpful to have.
Do you see the potential of abuse, though, in that companies or people will have to lobby you personally and not care about the law itself?
No one's asked me to overturn any laws.
You would have the ability to.
In some contexts, perhaps, but again, this is something that would have to be used very judiciously.
How could you possibly think that this would not undermine the trust in our democracy then?
This is, stop, let's just stop. This is the same government that thought it would be a genius idea to enact the Emergency Act and start freezing bank accounts. And now it's been found not once, but twice to have broken Canadian Charter of Rights of Canadians. And they're telling us, trust us, bro. We're not going to abuse removing 150 years worth of laws. You could trust us, I guess, in some small circumstances, but we're going to make the right judgment, says Mark Miller. This is so insane. I don't even know what to say. It's just pure insanity.
I think Canadians expect us to act reasonably. I think Canadians expect us to be judicious in our decision making. Passing a law like C-15, which all members will have the opportunity to vote on, is something that is inherently accountable in and of itself.
Well, it has this particular clause that is very problematic. It is all over the news. I have a letter with 43 organizations asking for you to strike it because of the potential of abuse, but you still want to keep it.
I think I've answered that question about 3 times now.
I just don't find it reasonable for you to have the powers of a king, essentially.
Certainly don't have the powers of a king.
If you are allowed to exempt any entity from any federal law, it is like the powers of a king.
Is that a statement or a question?
Well, it's a fact.
Thank you, Ms. Cobian.
It's a fact. And Mark Miller doesn't like facts, does he? He doesn't want to be labeled as having the power of a king. We could just bypass all of the laws for the last 150 years just so that we could get things done. How convenient that Mark Carney is now the supreme leader of Canada and wants to bypass 150 years worth of laws so that we can't investigate his ties to Brookfield and all of these projects of national interest, investing Canadian taxpayer dollars into Brookfield funds. And we can't investigate because we have Bill C-15, which will bypass all of this conflict of interest, giving these extraordinary powers. And then we have Mark Miller here saying, well, we will never abuse these powers. Trust us, bro. We are so trustworthy. Moving along, for all the Canadians out there that are hoping that our prime minister is going to put supply management on the table because Donald Trump said supply management is an issue if you want the renegotiation of the USMCA. This is a picture from 5 days ago where PM Carney and the dairy farmers of Canada are together. And I can assure you from the food professor himself that supply management stays. They own the politicians, all politicians. So if you're hoping for lower dairy prices and maybe even a free trade agreement with the United States, well, this picture says it all. The dairy cartel stands. Why does Alberta want independence? Keith Wilson here says Canada is structurally broken, no longer a true democracy. We have the weighted average of your votes across Canada. And as you can see in this beautiful chart, it shows that Alberta's vote weight percentage is only 89%. If you go to the Maritimes, you're going to see like New Brunswick, 140%. So every time there's one vote, it's worth 140%. Newfoundland and Labrador, for one vote, you get 1.5 votes in the House of Commons. Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta have the lowest vote weight percentage. Realistically, what we need to do in Canada is we need to make it fair, where it's 100% across the board. So when you vote, you have the same amount of weight percentage as anybody across the country. But currently, it's unfair. This needs to change. A brand new groundbreaking study has just been released. Sam Cooper reports that the study has mapped out 2,294 organizations with proven links to the Chinese Communist Party United Front influence apparatus across the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, and Germany, with Canada exhibiting nearly 5 times the per capita penetration rate of the United States and the highest density of CCP-linked organizations amongst all 4 democracies. Are we surprised? Let's take a look at this brand new breaking new information. We should not be surprised.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to speak about this report and its implications for Canada. My research looks at how the Chinese Communist Party, or the CCP, built influence in democratic societies through what it calls overseas United Front work. United Front is the party's weapon that it uses to expand control and influence without using force. The party uses this system to shape political, social, and economic environments in ways that serve the party's goal, which is becoming the dominant global power and advancing claims such as the annexation of Taiwan. And through ongoing and long-term relationship building, the party has created a global network of individuals and organizations inside open societies. This report maps that system across the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Germany, identifying more than 2,000 United Front-linked organizations. These organizations are identified through leadership links to the United Front system, including connections through meetings, delegates, and advisors to agencies such as the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference and the All China Federation of Returned Overseas Chinese. And organizations in Canada are very much part of this. Canada alone has at least 575 United Front-linked organizations, making it the second largest network in the research, and has the highest per capita among the 4 countries. This number gives a sense of how broad and deeply rooted the network already is, but at the same time, it is likely just the surface. Much of the United Front work happens through informal ties, such as personal relationships, invitation to China, honorary titles, and privileged access. So the nearly 600 United Front-linked organizations identified in Canada within a limited amount of time and resources are really just a visible layer of a much larger system operating quietly underneath. And it continues to grow as we speak.
So let me get this straight. We go to China and we say, you know what? Orange man bad. We need new trading relationships. We need to strengthen ties, and we still have zero information on what exactly Mark Carney signed when he was in China. No details on increasing cooperation. For example, sharing police intel and top secret information. We have zero idea. And we get a report that just comes out with this. This should be a full stop with China until we find out what is going on. And this is just scratching the surface. That's it for this report. I'm working on a brand new report. We just got some breaking news about Trembolone. It looks like Mark Carney's not going to be able to get all those floor crossers because he just lost another seat. And what do you think about Mark Miller's testimony? Everything is manufactured. You are lying. Do not trust your eyes. That is all fake news. I don't know about you, but Justin Trudeau's best man at his wedding sure knows how to fabricate a bunch of stories. What do you think about the new information about China and its penetration in Canada? Who is surprised? Make sure you share this video with everybody you know. Leave a comment. I'll see you on the next report.